The following is a JSW Media Group production. This is a stylish vegan podcast where we discuss all things food, lifestyle, and culture from a non-judgmental and unapologetic perspective with great people doing great things. I'm your host, Jamika Shamay. Let's get into it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of the Stylish Vegan Podcast. I'm your host, Jamika Shamay, and I am so thrilled and so excited to have our guest, Miss Merissa Underwood, join us today. Merissa, thank you so much for coming on and being a part.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I love all vegan conversations.
Absolutely. Well, Merissa is an animal rights activist, environmentalist, and you were Miss Montana USA 2020. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome. All of the things. You have
All
been
of
all of the things. I love it. Well, this podcast is really about just having really cool conversations with people who are in the plant-based and vegan world. And I wanted to bring you on because I feel like you have such an interesting perspective dealing with entertainment industry, pageantry, all of those things. I'm assuming modeling, acting, that kind of thing. Tell us a little bit about your background.
It's kind of all over the place. So I was a model for a while and more in like the commercial acting space. And that's when I became vegan and honestly, and a lot of my environmental practices started to come through during that time. And I actually felt a really big struggle in doing commercial acting because it's consumerism. The whole point is to make it look like you're having the best time of your entire life in order to sell people a product that, pardon me, they just don't need. And that's what really spiraled me into being way more outspoken, way more aggressive. In that same period of time, I decided to go back to school at, I think, 24 and study political science, and then just like really hit the ground running, became way more active in my animal rights groups locally, and ended up competing for Miss Montana, and all of that coming together was just like this big snowball of just pure outspokenness.
So how was that transition? How did your family react? Do you have other people who are vegan or plant-based in your family? How did that happen?
So I was a vegetarian in high school. In my sophomore year, maybe, I joined. So I'm from a pretty rural area, and I joined our high school's chapter of Future Farmers of America under the pretense of, if you love animals, join FFA. And so I was like, I love animals. And I was a really competitive horseback rider all throughout my childhood. So I was like, perfect, this is totally for me, because they have a horsemanship section where you can show your horse. Through that, I learned about the extreme commodification of farm animals and the way that my classmates, whose families were all in animal agriculture, the narrative that they had around animals and the complete lack of respect that they had for their farm animals proved to me that I didn't want to be a part of it at all. So when I was a sophomore, I was vegetarian, and my mom was like, okay, cool. My mom is very much like, whatever you want to do, you do it. I'll be here. I'll watch you. I'll make sure you're okay, but fine. So I was vegetarian and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know anybody else. I think I had one friend who was vegetarian. And then after about a year, I cracked and I was like, I'm so hungry, and ended up eating orange chicken and then threw it up because it made me so sick.
Mhm.
Um, Fast forward to when I was like maybe 20, I tried to be vegetarian again for a couple months. Was really hard with people making fun of me. Like, I had a lot of friends who hunted, and they would just eat, oh yeah, where I come from, yeah, hunters everywhere. And they would just like dangle meat in front of my face and make fun of me. And I was always really thin, so then people just said that I was like thin and frail vegan. So then I went back to eating meat, and this just shows that it's not a linear journey. And so when people say that like you don't care if you're not vegan overnight, is completely untrue. It takes so many steps, so much understanding, so much help from your community too. So it's really a challenge. And then I became fully vegan, I think when I was 22, 23.
Wow. That's really young, though, considering a lot of people get into the lifestyle at a later age, you know? So it's really cool that you at least realize that so young. But how
Yeah.
was
My sister tells this story of when we went to one of our neighbors' houses for like a barbecue or something. We walked out into their backyard and there was a pig on a spit, like a pig that they had had in their yard that morning, slaughtered, put it on a spit, and I walked out there and screamed and ran away. And this was much younger. I was not even in high school yet. And so for me, like I'd always connected so deeply to animals that like finally realizing that they have to be alive and then they have to die for us to get our food in our refrigerator, that was just like a crack for me.
I can only imagine with that kind of background and with all of their friends, you know, the teasing, because I did experience a lot of teasing as a kid because I grew up vegan. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so that was always a thing. So I can completely relate to the what are you eating or people trying to pretend like they're going to put something in your food or try, you know, that whole thing. So I definitely commend you for sticking to it. What was the catalyst that made you say, I'm going to be fully vegan, I'm not going back, this is me, here I go.
So funnily enough, it started with so I had been on and off for years, like always messed around with it, but never fully understood the extent of the dairy industry. And I had really, really severe acne that I tried to do everything to get rid of. And I remember reading some blog that said, you know, how do you get rid of acne? And somebody had said, cut out dairy. So I was like, well, I'm willing to try anything. So I started to cut out dairy. And through that, I was looking up recipes and watching things on YouTube and looking online, and all of them kind of led to being vegan because most people are vegetarian and then, you know, they're that and it's without the meat. But then I did it in the reverse where I started with the dairy when I was a little bit older and then kind of went down this path of like, well, why am I eating anything anyways? Let's see if being vegan can stick. And it just kind of did and just snowballed. Like one day I was just like, oh,
Well, let's talk about your reign as Miss Montana because I'm really intrigued by that considering it's Montana. So I was reading when I was doing a little bit of background research on you, I read that you kind of came up against some opposition a little bit because of the meat industry and how the agricultural industry and all of that it factors in your state. So talk about that because you now if I'm not mistaken, you ran on an animal rights platform, correct?
they knew exactly who I was when I interviewed. Everybody knew exactly what I stood for, exactly that I was vegan. The thing that I think a lot of people don't maybe understand on the outside is that in the pageant world, a lot of people bend the truth. So they'll say, well, I'm an advocate for this organization. I volunteer with this organization. And maybe they did once or twice. Most contestants, and this is, I'm not trying to be shady at all, I'm just saying like most contestants pick a topic for a year that they relate to on some level and then they never talk about it again after they win, and that's really commonplace. So they thought with me that I was just talking about animal rights and the environment because it was a hot topic, like, you know, climate change is really, really hot right now. So they just thought that I was lying or really bending the truth. So they didn't realize the extent of who I was. That like I go to protests, I go to marches, like I'm very heavily involved. Like it's extremely important to me. And once they kind of realized, it really started to blow out of proportion. And I started to share some topics on how to live a more sustainable and eco-friendly life, which includes a plant-based diet. Through that, then I started to share images on my Instagram story, on the Miss Montana USA Instagram story, and it just exploded. Like within 12 hours, it was on all the news channels in Montana. There was a change.org petition to have my title taken away simply because I'm vegan. And I say that other people should also be vegan. And the Montana Stock Growers, which is the big cattle organization in Montana, wrote me this huge letter telling me how wrong I was and that I needed to go to a ranch and that I needed to learn. And everybody kept saying, well, you need to be educated. You don't know what you're talking about. You need to be educated. And I was like, for one, I am. For two, I don't think that you need to educate yourself on how to live a morally just life. And in my eyes, a morally just life is not killing somebody. And they really hated that.
I could see how that might have ruffled a few feathers with the powers that be. So, what was the aftermath like? So, after your reign, like what did you do? What was next for you?
So after I competed at Miss USA, I actually was so emotionally exhausted, and defeated isn't the right word because I don't look at it in any way as a defeat. If anything, it was a total victory. Like, I did exactly what I needed to do. I stood with my morals and everything that I believed, but I was just berated so heavily on so many different levels. So there's the stress and the pressure of competing at Miss USA in the first place, which is huge pressure on your mental health, your emotional health, your body image, like everything in a pageant world is hard enough already. Then I also had the opposition of a huge portion of my state and a lot of people who were supposed to be on my team in my pageant community. There was a lot of like two-facedness and really kind of like snaky things going on. And so I was just so tired that I kind of took a really big step back from things for a while. And now I'm getting back into them, and I'm, going to protests and doing work now with my local community again, and starting to talk again. But I had to take some time for sure.
I mean, that makes total and complete sense. What would you say is your best advice for folks who need to take that moment for self-care? Because I don't think that women in particular, like, we've got the big self-care movement now, right? Everybody's talking about self-care, this, that, and the other. But what does that really mean in a meaningful way from someone who, you had to go through that? You went through a lot of mental stress for quite a while and had to really decompress. So tell us a little bit about that, or what advice would you give someone?
Something for me that was, I think, the biggest cloud over my head when I decided to take a step back was because we have this concept where we have to continue momentum. We have to post every day. We have to do every event. We have to talk to every person and say yes to everything. And we have this belief that if we stop for a little while, it's going to disappear. It's like a lack mentality where in modern society, we feel like we have to be visible at all times in order to matter. And that is something that I had to really like take head on and say, like, you can walk away from things, you can be invisible for a while. It doesn't have anything to do with your self-worth. And I think especially with social media, we're so tied to like the likes and the comments and the shares that are directly tied to our self-worth. And then when you work in like an animal rights community or any rights, human rights, you feel like you have to constantly be doing something in order to be considered an activist, and you don't. And that's so hard. Like, I even right now, I'm like having a mental struggle with it, and like that you can walk away from something. You will always matter. Like, everything you do and say will always matter. You don't need to be constantly talking outward, and being able to just sit and just like find peace for a moment. Yeah, it's like a validation thing for me. I had to be like, you can go a couple months without validation.
Right. And it's a really real thing, especially with how social media is so it has created this unrealistic narrative for so many people. And I don't like to bash social media because on one hand, it brings people close together, right? Like, I would
Yeah,
never have like been able to meet you or learn about your story or without social media, correct? Like,
yeah,
so it's a double-edged sword. I see it, but just that narrative that you have to be perfect, the whole Instagram model thing, the whole my face has to be perfect. My body has to be perfect. I have to have the perfectly curated feed at all times. That's just a lot of pressure. And it's good to see that, or good to hear that you really have taken a step back and figured out how not to let that affect you and affect your mental health. So I assume that's going to be an ongoing process for you to make sure that you stay grounded.
I'm trying to. And I'm also, I really learned through all of this that I'm not a social media influencer at heart. Like, it's not natural for me. It doesn't feel good necessarily. I'm a very in-person type of person, which is really hard to do over the last couple of years. Um, and I tried to make myself be an online person. I tried to force myself into this influencer mindset, and it was just not right. Like, I never felt good doing it. I hated it. I hate pushing products, even like things that I believe in, genuinely believe in. So it was a really nice realization to just be like, it's not for you. Just walk away.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. Exactly. Yes.
I love that. So let's talk about a little bit about okay, so I was reading some things about you and I was very intrigued by the egg donor.
Oh, yeah.
So you donated your egg. Tell us about that. You donated your eggs?
Yeah, so I have a couple close friends who had done it before me, and because I always had such severe acne, I was like, I don't really want to go anywhere near that because I don't know what it's going to do to my skin. But then after Miss USA, I decided, I was like, well, if I have garbage skin for a little while, it's not going to be the end of the world. So I just decided to interview with an egg company, and I was like, okay, whatever happens, happens. And then a family picked me, and I know that they're horseback riders, and one of them is a vet, and they were really looking for somebody who had total love for animals. And so it was just like a perfect match. And I flew out to Connecticut, had surgery. And if the surgery worked, which I don't know, it was closed. So I don't know any information other than what they do for work, and that's it, and their love of animals. I don't know if it worked, but if it did, they would be like 6 months pregnant right now with my baby.
Wow. So what is that something you've always wanted to do? Like how did that even just come up as an option for you?
Well, so my friends had done it, and they talked about how cool it was to see their babies. Like, they have pictures of the successful egg donation and can see their kids, and it's really cool. And like, for me, I kind of go back and forth on whether or not I want children. And so being able to say, well, I have the choice to choose whether or not I want one, or, whatever. But some people don't. And if I can help them in being, healthy and thriving, and also like put a little vegan half baby out into the world, which is a really cool, it's so fascinating to me. Like, that all of this science is there to be able to take something from me, put it in somebody else, and have it make a human.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. That's an amazing process. Now, was it a long how long did it take?
It was maybe like 3 or 4 months before I was matched with a family. So they basically, like, they put you online in a profile, and then families will come through and look through, kind of just like dating profiles. So like,
I
no,
was
no,
gonna
no,
say it's like Match, it's like pregnancymatch.com, it feels like.
yeah. Yeah, they look at your pictures, and then they ask for like videos of you talking and blah 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 blah. They have you do a psych test. You go through all of these medical exams. Like, I know everything about my body that there is to know now, which is so fascinating. You learn all your, if you're a carrier for anything, like, that's amazing. And then I did birth control for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I started the injections. And you inject yourself, which is they literally just mail you this cooler of tons of needles and all this hormone medication, and you have to do it all yourself, which is wild. They were just like, here's a video, take these needles, fill them up with all these hormone medications, and inject your belly. So my whole belly had all these dots everywhere and just little bruises. Some people bruise really bad. I didn't. But it's like, you have to pinch your skin and stick a needle in yourself 2 times a day for 10 days. And then you fly to wherever their doctor is. And then I was there for a week, and had surgery and came on home.
Let me just tell you, the moment they said needles, I probably would have just been done. Like, if I had gotten that, that cooler of needles, I just laid out and just it would have been over just right then and there. So I commend you for that. See, that's when you're young.
So I don't have, this is weird, but I am really easily able to inflict pain on myself. Like if I had my hand stuck under a rock, I wouldn't have somebody else do it. I would do it, and I would be able to like control the emotion behind it. So I can look at sticking a needle in myself and control the emotion and the sensation, and just be like, it's gonna be over. It doesn't even, like, if it's not gonna kill me, we're fine.
You're, you're like, why not? I wonder how that translates in other aspects of your life.
A little masochism, maybe.
Nothing wrong with a little bit of things, but that's not what this particular podcast is about, so we won't go there just yet. But if anybody wants to hit Merissa up later and ask her about that, then feel free.
Oh, I don't mean like SM, yeah.
I love how this is just going down a rabbit hole.
This is what I told you. My podcasts always go in weird directions and they get really long.
Right, but you know what? It's all good. It's all good. We talk about everything here unapologetically and with no judgment. So everything's on the table. So, if you had to define veganism for yourself, how do you define veganism? What does it mean to you?
It's a great question. For me individually, it's that I have the immense privilege. I know everybody says privilege, but it is. I have the immense privilege to be able to choose what I purchase. And a lot of people don't want to admit that they have that privilege. And yet we do. We can go into a grocery store, we can go into Sephora, and we can look at something and say, where did this come from? Who had to be exploited in order to produce it? And for me, a lot of people will bring up, they'll say, well, how many humans were exploited for this? That's a great question. And that's the whole point of intersectional veganism. So I believe in that too. We have to consider where it's coming from, who is planting all the fruits and vegetables that I'm eating now. So looking at it in like this all encompassing way of, is anybody living a life of misery in order for me to buy this lunch or to buy this makeup? And if I have the very easy choice to choose this one that doesn't exploit anyone, or this one that does, I'm going to choose this one. And even if it's $2 or $3 more, I don't care. I'll spend it.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing to talk about. It's your why, right? Because I think that it's easy to stick with your lifestyle if you know your why and you know how you're impacting things or what your impact is. And I feel like the general public doesn't realize what we do and why we do it and why that it's so, like this is not just something that we do because, oh, I just don't want to eat meat today. This is trying to be as compassionate as possible and living that lifestyle so that we don't, we're trying not to kill things around us in order to just live when it's not even necessary. So what would you say, like, what's your, I guess, elevator pitch to folks when, they may be vegetarian. Let's say they're vegetarian and you're trying to bring them to the green side. I like to put it that way. What do you say to folks? What do you say to people?
So I would have to find out the root of what would influence them. Do they care the most about their health? Do they care the most about animals or the environment or maybe other reasons? And then kind of go on and talk about that. Like for me, I find that I will always go to the ethical side because I just do not support harming anybody in any capacity. So let's say that they're like, oh, I love animals and I don't want to exploit animals. So then great, we'll talk about how terrible the dairy industry is and how cruel they are to the cows and goats and everybody else that's exploited in this. If it's environmental, we'll talk about how terrible it is for the environment, the methane that's emitted, the water pollution is something that I think that we really do not talk about enough. Like methane really gets it's up there, but the water pollution, especially when you talk about like hog farms, the way that it is destroying communities, they don't even have clean water or clean air to breathe. And then you can move that into like a human rights issue, because a lot of people will say to me, well, I don't care about animals, but I care about humans. Great. Let me talk to you about what's happening in the hog farms in the Carolinas where they don't have clean air to breathe. That will get some people. So you just have to find like what it is for them that's going to emotionally trigger them. For some people, they don't have it. Like my coworker at work doesn't have it at all, and that's been really challenging because I'll see him pour out expired milk that he just didn't care to drink, and then pour it out, and he's like, "I don't care. Don't care about anything."
Yeah, dealing with the emotional aspect of it too. Dealing with folks who just they don't care about what their impact is on the world. They just don't. Like there's no morality there. And it's hard sometimes not to you don't want to be judgmental because you don't want anybody to be judgmental on our side as we're trying to get the word out and trying to, just expand and make sure that everybody knows what's going on. How do you ride that line with being non-judgmental but still getting your point across?
Ooh, that one's tough because I'm really spicy. I don't eat a lot of spicy food, but I am a spicy person. And funny because I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking about Cory Booker, and I just listened to a podcast with him and Jane Goodall, and I was like, what is it that I really admire so much about him? And it's his way of being able to be so kind and gentle, and the way that he talks about things, but he doesn't sacrifice the impact of what he's talking about. Like you get it and you experience it, but he says it so kindly that you're like, I can't really be mad at you. Like you're speaking the truth. And so he's really somebody that I look to in the way that he communicates. And then of course we have Earthling Ed, who's just like the kindest soul in existence. But actually last night I was at a bar where a friend ordered a pepperoni pizza and he only wanted one slice, but the bar only had a full pepperoni pizza.
Yeah.
So he ordered it. He ate one piece and left it on the table. And then my group went to leave and I saw the box and I grabbed it and I was like, are you kidding me? And I got so worked up. I was like, you're going to leave this entire pizza on the table? And he goes, well, I didn't want it. I just wanted one piece. And I was like, but all of this waste that goes into it, like, don't you care? And afterwards I was like, was that a little too much? But no, I think he deserved it.
Sometimes too much is just enough.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that. I agree with that. So let's have a little bit of fun as well. What have you had experiences with dating? Do you date other vegans only, or how has that been?
So I'm a very single person. I'm a very independent person. I don't date a lot at all. The last time I was in a relationship was 2018, and he wasn't vegan, which is what shifted me. And not only was he not vegan, he was a fast food, junk food omnivore, and it was disgusting to me. And so after him, I was like, well, I'm not going to date anyone who's not vegan. Recently, I started dating somebody who is mostly vegan, vegetarian, was raised vegan, and that is really nice. And then I've had a couple people who are vegetarian or like pescatarian mostly. I think because it's getting more mainstream, people will really be open to it. It's like I won't marry someone who's not vegan. There's no way I'm going to have non-vegan products in the house. And I think men are becoming a lot more receptive to that, which is really nice,
Yes.
thankfully.
I can attest to that. I am very happy that people are becoming a little bit more open because it was a little rough early on. Because I'm substantially older than you. We're not going to talk about age right now, but let's just say that like the dating pool was not quite what it is now.
Right. Yeah. Do you have a partner now, and are they vegan?
I do not. Just got out of a long-term relationship. They were vegan friendly
Oh, okay.
because of our interactions. They decided to start implementing more vegan things into their diet. But I have that effect. I've been told that I have that effect on my partners. They have a
Good.
tendency to come on over. So yeah, for the next one, we will see what happens. But yeah, but I'm like fatally single right now. Just
Oh, me
fatally. But it's all good. All good. All right, cool. So, well, tell people what you have going on and like what's next. Like, how can people reach you on social? Yeah, all of the things.
So like I said, I'm really bad with social media. I only have Instagram. My Instagram is at Merissa, Merissa.Underwood. I'm really good at responding as well to my message requests. So if anybody DMs me and asks questions, I will most likely always answer. And if I don't, send it again or comment on a picture and say, I message you, can you answer me? I am actually DJing the Vegan Women's Summit this end of August. That's going to be in LA. So I'm really stoked about that. So everybody should come to that. It's a really great organization with a lot of amazing speakers and companies and businesses. So come to that. I also am potentially, I can't give any real information, but I am in the casting process of being on a reality show on Discovery Channel, where I will be the vegan person. That's like my stance, is the beauty queen vegan, and that's all I can say. But potentially I will be on your Discovery Channel down the line talking about veganism.
That sounds amazing. So congrats on all of that. I'm trying to see if I can make it to the Vegan Women's Summit. That would be awesome to meet you in person and see. And the fact that you're DJing, that's amazing. So congrats on that. And we are going to send prayers up, fingers crossed, all of the things for that reality show, because that would be dope.
It's like a fun adventure one too, because it's a big cliche for pageant girls. Actually, the winner of The Bachelor, I guess, I don't know if you can call her a winner, but she's with The Bachelor now. She was Miss Virginia my year. So that's a big thing, is that pageant girls go on to do dating shows, but I'm going to go on an adventure show. So I think it's quite fitting.
That's all right. Let them know. Let them know what y'all can do. Represent for the pageant girls.
We're not just here to be your wife, okay?
Absolutely. Well, this has been such a pleasure, Merissa. This has been really, really cool. I've had a great time chatting with you. Is there anything else you want people to know about you that I haven't asked?
Ooh, I don't know. Something recently that I've been dealing a lot with is that, and this is different than anything we talked about at all today, but I think it kind of goes along with why I'm such a devoted animal rights activist, is I'm something called a highly sensitive person, which kind of means that my sensory input levels are like 4 times the amount of the average person. And it feels like my nerve endings are cut off constantly, and I'm impacted by things really, really heavily. And I found that a lot of people in the animal rights community have the same thing, where we're all just like really, really sensitive. And it's hard to understand, because then you're like, am I maybe a little bit like neurodivergent? What is it? What is making me feel all these ways? And what I have come to discover is that there's something called a highly sensitive person. And it has helped me in life so much. It doesn't make anything like easier with the sensitivity and the sensations of things, which sometimes can get really overstimulating. But it's nice to know that there is a reason why I feel so many things.
That's amazing, because I did not know about that. And that is also a perfect way for us to end this conversation, because you are a highly sensitive person. You have shared yourself, and we appreciate it so much. So thank you again for joining us here at The Stylish Vegan. Yeah, you got to come back, because once all of these cool things happen for you, and I know that they're going to happen, you're going to have to tell us all about it. So I've got you recorded that you're coming back.
After the show, yes, you will be the first one. I'll even give it to you now. You can be the first podcast that I come on to after the show.
Yes. This is what I like, exclusivity. All right, Merissa, thank you so much. And thanks again, and talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Stylish Vegan Podcast. If you like what you heard today, we'd love your support. You can share, subscribe, and like us on all social media at stylish_vegan. Want to sponsor or be a guest? Go ahead and slide into our DMs on Instagram. Until next time.